Hello, and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where spring has finally sprung. Today I am wearing my finished Vellichor Tee. Wow, am I relieved to have this off the needles. As predicted, I really like this finished object, but it was a bit of a slog to knit. I think part of that is because the progress goes really slowly, partly because you're doing some mosaic knitting. You're knitting some rows, you're purling some rows, you're slipping some stitches. And because the background fabric of this design is garter stitch, you need a lot more rows per inch to make progress. So it was a bit of a slog, but I found that by the time I got to finishing up to the underarm divide, and then I did the back and the front are exactly the same. So I did the first panel, and then by the time I flipped to the second one, it was smooth sailing and it went really quickly. Why don't I show you what it looks like? Here it is. The drape of this yarn is lovely. Like, look at that. Oh, it's so nice. This is, hi there. This was knit with the Sadness Garn Tin Lena, which is the fingering weight Lena or linen yarn. It is a combination of linen, viscose, and cotton, and it is so light and airy when you wear it. Now, having said all of that, it is splitty. It is quite loosely spun, and the fibers of this yarn, which I actually have some of it here, maybe you can see. It's just loosely spun, and it makes the knitting of the yarn really easy to split. I could have taken more care, I suppose, with that. Particularly the problem, or the place where I found in the beginning anyway, where I was splitting the stitches most was on these twisted stitch columns. It looks like a tiny cable, but it's not. It's just some twisted stitches, which means you're constantly knitting two together and then knitting another one, and then dropping them both off the needle. And that process made it a little bit tricky for me. As I said, I could have been more careful with that. But having said all of that, I think it's quite a lovely finished object. I think I can wear it a lot. I think it'll look great with jeans or linen pants. And I think that it's going to wash really nicely. Now, because of the nature of this yarn, I think that what I'm going to be doing is washing it in the washer and then hanging it to dry. Let me know if you have some experience with this yarn and how it washes. The reason I would hang it to dry is because I don't want to lose any length. I quite like the length of this t-shirt the way it is, and I don't want it to like snug up, especially because it's garter stitch, so it could. Let me know your experience with this yarn. But so far, having worn this for about half an hour to take some pictures outside, so nice, really lovely, airy. Again, the drape is nice, and I think the feel of the fabric's really nice. So this is my finished Vellichor, and I'm so relieved it's off the needles. It was a bit of a slog, and other people have told me that. Not that the knitting isn't enjoyable, but it's not just a mindless knit that you can pick up and work on. You do have to pay attention. You have to watch what you're doing. So it's not something I could work on and, let's say, read a book or watch TV. So if you're interested in the Vellichor, because it is a lovely finished object, I would say knit it, but know that it's going to take a bit longer than you think it is. And you really do need to be watching what you're doing. So that is one thing off my needles. I actually have a few things off my needles. I have finished my Oilers playoff socks. Now, if you watch hockey at all, you might know that the Oilers, who are from Edmonton, are doing quite well right now. Their first couple of playoff games was not promising. Their first couple postseason games didn't really inspire a lot of hope. However, they've really come together and they're doing really well. And people in Edmonton are very superstitious. There's a local radio station DJ who has She makes crazy costumes all the time. She's incredibly creative. And I should show you a picture of her magpie costume that she made for Halloween last year. The magpie has just been named the city bird of Edmonton, to perhaps no one's surprise. But this is her hockey skate costume that she is very superstitious about and she needs to wear on game day because when she wears it, they win. Now, I have finished a couple of Oilers socks. These were knit from a set dyed by That Yarn Habit. And I have been asked a couple times what colors I used. She just dyes this up as a set, and she does indicate on the label what the colors are. Now, I think that this blue is denim, I think. The orange is clementine. And this cream, I think, is parchment. But she sells it as a kit. It comes as a 50-gram blue, a 50-gram orange, and a 20-gram of this cream color. And I was not as careful as I thought I was being in terms of rationing out my blue yarn. So I ended up striping out the toes, which I think makes them look kind of like an old-timey hockey jersey. If my camera's shaking, it's because Blue is kind of cuddling up and I don't want to bother him because he seems really comfy. But he's right down there, so don't kick him. So these are my Oilers socks that I finished. I will show you a picture of them modeled by my husband, and he's going to be getting these later today, so I'm sure he'll be happy with those. They fit him really well, so that was exciting. And the other thing that I finished is my May Colorwork Cuff Club socks. Now these socks are still slightly damp because I did block them yesterday, but let me show you them. The May socks, as predicted, April socks had little clouds with raindrops, so April showers, and then these ones are the May flowers. When I saw this pattern when it came out, I thought it reminded me a lot of my cross-stitch tattoo, which is right here, and this is maybe not the best view of it, but it's got a red rose and some black leaves and a stem. So I thought I would like to do that for these socks. So these are my May socks. I did choose to do the pearl rib, which is just an optional sort of pattern for the foot. And that is just one row of plain knitting and one row of knit 3 purl 1. As predicted, a good time was had by all. This Colorwork Club has been so much fun. Every month you get a little chart to insert into a basic sock pattern that Summerlee has sent out. And then there may be some slight modifications like this little pearl texture, or maybe you could carry the colorwork throughout the whole sock. There's lots of options for every sock, but it's been so much fun every month coming out with color choices and patterns. And I'm really enjoying them. I have a whole collection of them. And once the last Colorwork Cuff Club chart comes out, which I think should be in July, once I finish those socks, I will go ahead and do a little video to show you all of the socks all together. I will have to take the April socks back from my older daughter. She claimed them. Her birthday is in April, but she also liked them. So I was having this discussion recently about blocking socks and do I block socks? I only block socks the first time. And then after that, I just wash them and put them back in my drawer because they're going to get all crumpled up and they'll stretch out on my leg. But it is nice to finish off this color work nicely with a bit of blocking. I think it opens it up and it evens out the stitches nicely. So that's what they look like off the needles. And that is all my finished objects this week. In the last couple of weeks, I have had a chance to get together with some knitting friends. I was asked to come and talk to a group of knitters about something that interested me. And one thing that I thought would be interesting to talk to knitters about is measurements and our own body measurements and how knowing what our measurements are can affect how we make choices in our knitting. So we talked a little bit about measurements, measuring bust, measuring upper bust, and the difference and why you might choose one measurement over another when you're making a sweater. We measured different parts of our bodies, and some of the measurements that I find the most useful are like the bust and the upper bust, because some sweaters, if they have a lot of ease, let's say a sweater calls for 6 to 8 inches of ease, I will choose my ease based off my upper bust measurement, which is my measurement just under my armpits, and not at my full bust measurement, because the rest of my body sort of depends on is more related to my upper bust measurement than my full bust measurement. And that's what works for me. I think a lot of knitters may find that you have to have a look at the sweaters that you like and that you wear all the time and see what works for you. So if there's a sweater in your closet that you love and you wear all the time, measure it, see how wide it is, see how long it is, how long are the sleeves, what kind of construction is it? Is it a raglan? Is it a round yoke? And that will give you some ideas of what types of patterns you might like to knit and feel successful in. So really liking your finished projects. So some of the measurements I like are that upper bust and the full bust. And then you can measure yourself from on your back, from your the center of your neck, so basically your spine. Measure from there all the way out to your wrist, or where you like to wear your sweaters. And that will give you a measurement that you can use while you're knitting a sweater to see if your sleeve is long enough. So you can measure from the center of the neck of your sweater out to your arm and see how you're doing in terms of sweater length. So with different sweater constructions, it may be hard to predict how long of a sleeve you want, but that measurement should give you some idea. So taking a look at our bodies, seeing what kind of measurements we have and how that relates to patterns that we're choosing or knitting, and what sorts of decisions we can make in terms of our knitting to suit our bodies best. So that was a really fun morning/afternoon. We talked also, one of the other knitters, Mama Shar, took some time to talk about blocking and different methods of blocking and different tools and tricks that you can use to successfully block your knitting. So whether that's like color catchers to absorb some of the dye from a really heavily dyed yarn. There was a knitter there who's also a yarn dyer, and she gave some really useful insights into the dyeing process and what types of things that we can think about that might be helpful in terms of setting the yarn a little better. So it was a great afternoon, and thank you so much to the Yarn Rebels for inviting me to come and talk. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. Now, I did have to do a little bit of mending this week. When it comes to mending, I don't mend a lot of things. I don't mend socks. Maybe I should, but I don't, because I knit so many socks that once a pair of socks have worn through, I guess I Marie Kondo them. I'm like, thank you for your service. And then I send them on their way and I grab a new pair from the pile, because I'm always knitting socks and I have so many pairs of socks that I don't feel like I need to extend the life of the socks that I have. And maybe that's, maybe I should rethink that idea or opinion. Why don't you let me know? Do you mend your socks? Do you darn them? I have darned them in the past, but I knit so many socks that I feel like once I've worn through a pair of socks, they have lived their best life and I let them go. But let me know what you do. Anyway, I had a market bag that was doing really well, except for in one spot. Now these market bags I use constantly. I found this pattern online. I believe it's a free pattern. This is the Eileen bag, I-L-E-N-E. And I'll link to it in the show notes below. And it is my favorite market bag. I have made some adjustments to the original pattern. I tend to knit mine a little bit bigger than is recommended in the pattern, and that's easy to adjust. But I can let you know what my favorite dimensions are when it comes to this Eileen bag, because it's really useful and it's super stretchy. Let me put my big wooden sock blockers in them. So you can see that this bag really stretches to hold a lot. I have used these as beach bags, which is kind of nice because the sand just kind of shakes out. I can put a couple of beach towels in there and a book. Like they really stretch. But this one, I noticed, had a little bit of a pop in the bind off right here. So these stitches had sort of dropped. And this seam right here had come apart. So I just used some bright green yarn to do a little bit of, I guess, visible mending, picked up the stitches and sewed it together so to extend the life of this bag. This bag and a lot of them that I've made were knit out of a linen yarn. This one I think was BC Garns linen, but I've used different linen yarns. When they say that linen softens, it really, really does soften. And I have made, I don't even know how many I've made. We probably have 6 or 8 in rotation, which is great. If you're going to get groceries, you need a couple. Or here in Edmonton, we have not a tax, but there's a cost to purchasing a bag when you go shopping. If you go shopping at the mall and you buy a pair of jeans, they'll ask you if you want a bag and they'll charge you 25 cents. So we'll take these bags when we go shopping, and they're great because you can stuff a lot of stuff in them. So I was really glad to give this bag a little bit of a renewed lifespan. And I realized that I have some yarn that might make some great Eileen bags. And so I took my leftovers from this sweater that I haven't already used. That's foreshadowing. And I cast on just the beginning of an Eileen bag. So let me just show you where I'm at. It's very humble beginnings. Now this yarn is a little bit more drapey than the 100% linen. It has a lot of linen. It also has cotton and viscose. I think it's the viscose that adds a lot of the drape, but I'm pretty sure that this will be a sturdy bag. And I've just started the base of it. And now that I have completed the base, and now I'm going to pick up stitches all around this rectangle, I knit a couple of rounds of stockinette stitch, and then I do this this netting stitch, which is really just one round of knit 2 together, yarn over, and then the next round you knit. I'm pretty sure that's all that is. But as I said, it's a free pattern, and you can go ahead and look it up if you're interested in some market bags. But I thought this would be a great use of this yarn, and if I don't want to keep them, then I might give them away. But I've got this green, which you may see here in this little top, and I've got, so when I started I had 36 grams. I've been weighing this just out of curiosity. I've had 36 grams of this yarn. I will need more. I'm going to knit until I run out of this yarn, and then I think I'm going to use the neutral creamy color for the top of the, I'll just keep going and I'll finish in this creamy color. I also have some of the blue left, so I might make another one in blue. And I have some 100% linen yarn left over from a t-shirt that I made. It was one of my flipside tees. Maybe my first flipside tee. Maybe I'll pop a picture here. And I'm pretty sure is 100% cotton, or it may have, or linen, sorry. And it may have some cotton in it, but what I might do is just do the base in that one. So I'll start with the cotton, the sort of more sturdy, more rustic, I almost would say, yarn. And I'll knit as much of that as I can. And then I'll top it off with the light blue. So that might be pretty too. So I'm looking forward to just knitting up some market bags. It's a nice, I'll be honest with you, it's a nice break from the socks I've been knitting a lot of. And it's some nice mindless knitting and very useful. And so like I said, if I don't keep it, I might give those away, but they're always a super useful project. And I have all these leftovers, so it makes me really happy to be using them up. Now, having said that, I did start my next project, the Geddy Tee. The Geddy Tee, when it came out, I, like many people, were super excited about it. This is a pattern by Tanis Lavallee of Tanis Lavallee Designs. Is that right? Super cute. And she, I think, is becoming known for mixing crochet and knitting. So this t-shirt has got, it's actually a very similar construction to the one I'm wearing. It's basically a big square with some modifications. So I have knit, first I crocheted these granny squares, and I did use leftovers from this sweater. So this neutral color is the center one. This green you probably recognize. Then I have a navy, a pale pink, and this really pretty bright red color. I'm really sort of into this red color right now. And really the red was the first color that I picked when I was picking colors for this yarn. I picked the red, and then I wanted a neutral to go with it. So then I picked this sort of icy blue. And then I knew I wanted red and pink together. And then I just sort of built on either what I had on hand or the colors that sort of interested me. So I've done the crochet granny squares. This pattern is written to be knit in wool, but I am knitting it in the Sadness Garn Lena or linen. It is the exact same yarn as this, but a heavier weight. So it's actually more of a DK to worsted weight. I would say DK. I don't think it's as heavy as a worsted weight. And I used this fingering weight, which is the same yarn by the same company, the fingering weight version. I used it held double for the crochet granny squares that I've done. So I started out by crocheting my granny squares, and every time I take a break from granny squares, I have to go back and remind myself what I'm doing. Tannis's instructions are very good. So I crocheted 4 granny squares. I chose to do mine all the same, although other crafters have done different colors in a different order, whatever. For the granny squares, I went with a very sort of uniform approach. And some of the crafters that I was talking to at that little get together on the weekend had some great ideas. One person was going to be using some leftovers that they had lying around. One person was going to use a variegated yarn for the granny squares and then pick up in a solid, which I thought really sounded like an interesting idea too. I went this route, and then I picked up stitches all around, knit the back a bit, knit the front a bit. And as you can see, the front has got some shaping. There is short rows to shape the back, so it sits like this a little bit. It's higher at the neck than it is at the bottom of the shoulders. And now I'm just ready to go ahead and knit in the round. This, compared to this, was a much faster knit. I mean, number one, I was using a DK yarn, but also it's just the plain knitting seems to be going so much quicker. And this is where I'm at. I think it's quite pretty. It's going to have a nice ribbed neckline and some ribbing at the sleeves. I think my plan is to knit a plain ribbed hem. The pattern calls for a split hem, so there's a bit of ribbing in the front and a bit of ribbing in the back. But for my body type, anytime I have worn a sweater like that has the split hem, I find that it sits funny on me. The front tends to like tent out here. The front will tent out kind of like this, and the back will tent out a bit like that for whatever reason. I'm not going to question it, but I do know that if I knit sweaters that don't have that same split hem, they sit nicer on my body. So my decision, I think, will be to knit this plain stockinette, which is going to be perfect because there is a volleyball tournament this weekend. I know you were wondering. It's the last one of the season. It's nationals, and it's a 3-day weekend, which means a lot of knitting. And that's great because, hey, excuse me, sir, please don't walk away with my yarn. I'll take that from you. Oh, hey. Oh. It's really hard to get good help. I have 3 days of just plain knitting, and I've got lots of inches of stockinette for this sweater to go. So the plan is to just knit straight until I get to an appropriate length. I don't know what length. I'll maybe have a look in my my closet and see if there's any t-shirts that I wear a lot in terms of the length that I'd like to knit it to before I start the ribbing. And yeah, it's just going to be plain knitting, which is going to be perfect for this weekend. This is the Geddy tee. Again, I'm using Sadness Garn Lena, which is a DK weight yarn. And if I was smart, I would have a label here so I could tell you all about it. It is, here's what the band looks like in case you're interested in getting it yourself. This is quite a cost-effective yarn. For me at my local yarn shop, it was $8 a ball. So for me, I think that's pretty cost-effective for a nice drapey yarn. This yarn has 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. Again, it's the same content as the yarn I used for this sweater, but it's bulkier. I'm pretty happy with the result. The fabric's really nice. I think it's gonna have a nice drape as well, and I think it's gonna wash really nicely. Again, I wouldn't put this in the dryer. I think I would wash it and lay it out to dry. but I'm thinking it's going to be a really cute t-shirt for this summer. That is all the things that I have on my needles right now. I do have a quick plan. That market bag was sort of a spur of the moment cast on, but I think it'll be a nice palette cleanser, and what a great way to use up some of this leftover yarn that I have from the projects I've been working on. So I'm quite happy with that. And Andrea Mowry, who is a very popular knitwear designer. I don't know if you've heard of her. She does a knit along in the spring and the summer, and it's a challenge to see if you can knit something in a weekend. It's a long weekend. It's usually you start on a Thursday and work through till the Monday, I think. In the spring, she knits hats, and in the fall, she knits socks. Now, socks are a bit more of a challenge because there's more stitches in a sock. This spring, the pattern that we're going to be trying to knit in a weekend is called the Harlow Flip Hat. It is a cute little hat. It is a standard brioche 2-color with a bit of a flip so that you can use 2 colors and have one color on the outside when you flip the brim of the hat. And then if you turn it inside out, you can have a completely different looking hat with the other or opposite color being more dominant in the hat as well as the flipped section. I stash dived naturally, and her pattern calls for a DK weight yarn as well as Spin Cycle Dream State. Now, Dream State markets itself as a worsted, but again, kind of like this Lena, I don't think it is a worsted. I would call it a light worsted or DK. So I did have some of this yarn in my stash. This is kind of a crazy colorway, and I've been sort of debating what to do with it. I mean, I do love the colors in it, and I think it's really fun, but it's been a struggle to figure out what to do with it. This is the Dream State. It is the worsted weight version of the Spin Cycle. And this one is called Truth Bomb. And I had a lonely skein of Shelter in my stash. This, I think, is left over from my dad's cardigan that I made him a couple of years ago. And Shelter to me, again, I mean, it's sort of light worsted-ish, DK-ish. So because it's such a lofty yarn, I think you can kind of stretch it. And I'm going to be using this navy color, which is actually called Deep Dive. That is, again, Deep Stash. I'll be using this with this together. And I think that'll make a fun hat. This hat will probably be for me, I'll be honest with you. I wear hats a lot in the winter. When I walk my dog, I always need a hat. And the idea of a doubled up hat to keep my ears warm sounds perfect. Last year's hat, I had 2 that I wore a lot. One was a Harlow hat, which was cozy, but the idea of having it doubled up sounds really good to me. And the other one I had was what's that one called? Plump? The Plump hat that I knit sort of midwinter. That is a heavier weight, very warm hat. But I think this will be sort of a nice in the middle. And as I've said before, if you live in Canada, in certain parts of Canada, you may need different hats for different weather. I just had to pause because I got a delivery. It's a new cookbook that I'm looking forward to trying. But I also feel really weird sitting here and podcasting while somebody's walking up to my front door, which is really just right there. Anyway, as I was saying, if you live in Canada, we have many, many seasons that are hat appropriate. Sometimes you need a lighter hat, sometimes you need a warmer hat. And I think that this will make a really nice warmer weather hat for me. And I look forward to trying to knit that in a weekend. I don't think that'll be too much of a trouble. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But I will let you know and keep you apprised of my progress. So in the next couple of weeks, I wonder if you're going to also join the DRK spring challenge for knitting a hat in a weekend. It might be fun to search your stash for appropriate yarns like I did. And let me know if you're planning on that. We're starting next Thursday, May 22nd, I believe. Regardless, I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to do the things that you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.